Okay, picture this. It's late 2025,
Hmm.
and you're walking into a lecture hall. What do you see? Well, half the laptops are glowing with ChatGPT tabs.
Uh-huh.
Over in one corner, maybe a philosophy student is asking for counter-arguments to Kant, you know? And then a chemistry student's debugging some Python script for reaction yields.
Right.
And the professor, maybe they're just taking attendance, they glance up and it hits them.
Yeah.
The way we learn, research, teach, it's all fundamentally changed.
Yeah.
And suddenly you see them scribble open book, open AI exam onto next week's quiz margin.
It's happening.
That scene isn't just, a hypothetical. It's really playing out worldwide.
Mhm.
AI isn't some exotic niche gadget in academia anymore.
Not at all.
It's properly baked into everyday study habits, research workflows, even like departmental budgets. We're talking about a seismic shift here, a cultural one.
Definitely seismic. And it happened incredibly fast.
It really feels like overnight, doesn't it? Like we just vaulted from these sporadic little chatbot experiments to full-on curricular integration.
And that huge shift is exactly why we're doing this deep dive today. We're looking at AI in academia, a field guide for the ChatGPT era.
Great source for this.
Yeah, it's a fantastic book by Sarah, an educationist expert in policy and AI integration, just published July 1st, 2025.
So very current.
Very. And our mission for you, the listener, is to basically trace how AI landed in academia, what it does really well, where the potholes are.
The challenges, yeah.
Right. And crucially, how universities are trying to build policies, assessments that, honor human intellect but still embrace the speed of silicon. We want to meet you right where the chalk dust settles, so to speak.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the speed, like you said, it's been astonishing. The source notes that in just 12 hectic months, we vaulted from sporadic chatbot experiments to full curricular integration. Seriously, it felt like it changed overnight.
It really, really did. And, this wave feels fundamentally different from the AI tools we had before. Well, think about spell check that just, fixed grammar. Or Turnitin, which caught plagiarism. Each addressed a very narrow slice of academic work.
Right, specific tasks.
But these large language models, the LLMs, they completely smash that pattern. They can generate paragraphs, summarize literature, debug code, draft questionnaires, even translate Latin, all in one chat window.
Wow.
The leap, and Sarah puts this so well in the source, it's like moving from screwdrivers to 3D printers.
Okay, that's a great analogy.
Same workshop, but an entirely new creative surface.
That really lands it. So it feels like the very nature of learning has changed. Is it fair to say that, once that classroom door closes, a student isn't really alone with their paper anymore?
That's a really interesting way to put it, yeah.
Like every student now carries this virtual study partner.
Yeah.
One that knows more footnotes than any single professor could possibly hold in their head.
Pretty much, yeah. A partner with infinite patience, too.
Right. Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting. Let's talk about what AI already aces on campus, starting with its research superpowers. What's standing out there?
Oh, the applications are already incredibly powerful. They free up huge amounts of time.
Like what? Give us some examples.
Okay, so imagine you need instant literature triangulation. Complex topic, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can ask for seminal papers on, say, CRISPR ethics, and you get not just citations, but concise summaries of the arguments. Instantly.
That saves days, maybe weeks.
Exactly. Or methodology brainstorming.
Yeah.
Reviewers hit you with confounding variables.
Happens all the time.
You can ask the AI for alternative experimental designs, or if you're wrestling with stats, paste in a results table. Get guidance on whether ANOVA or regression fits best for what you're trying to show.
Okay.
And for coding, it's a proper code companion, auto-generating R scripts, spotting those nightmare infinite loops, suggesting vectorization tricks.
That's handling the grunt work.
Precisely. That's the undeniable benefit here. Reclaiming hours lost to that rote, clerical stuff. Scholarly imagination gets to stretch further when the chores shrink.
That makes total sense for researchers. Huge efficiency boost. But it's not just about the output.
Right.
What about the learning experience itself? How's it changing teaching?
Absolutely. The teaching side is fascinating too. AI enables things like dynamic tutorials. A chatbot can ask probing questions, figure out where a student's confused, and then adjust the difficulty in real time. It's like a personalized tutor available 24/7.
Wow.
Then there are huge accessibility leaps. Real-time subtitles, multilingual glossaries breaking down language barriers for diverse learners.
That's incredibly important.
And in creative fields, the source talks about creative scaffolds. Think art classes, mixing generative models with traditional brushstrokes. Students iterate concepts digitally before even touching a canvas.
So exploring ideas faster.
Exactly. These applications reveal those learning moments that used to slip through the cracks, maybe between crowded office hours. Things we just couldn't scale before.
Okay, so we've got these amazing upsides in research, in teaching, but, with great power comes challenges.
Indeed. Responsibility, yes.
The source calls it the integrity gauntlet. Let's talk about that. What are the main minefields universities are grappling with? Academic honesty.
Right. There are three big ones keeping educators up at night. First, what Sarah calls hallucinations masquerading as references.
Hallucinations.
Yeah, the AI just makes stuff up. It might write a really persuasive paragraph citing journals that simply never existed.
Yep.
Or facts that are completely fabricated.
Oh, that's dangerous.
Very. Then there's ghostwriting at scale. The source has a pretty startling statistic here.
Okay.
7% of students already submitting assignments wholly authored by a bot.
7%.
Yep. Think about that. Almost 1 in 10 students basically outsourcing their intellectual work entirely. It's a huge wake-up call about what we're actually assessing.
Wow. Okay, what's the third one?
Undetectable drift. Each time these models get updated, their output style shifts slightly.
So the detectors can't keep up.
Exactly. Detection teams are constantly chasing a moving target. And the broader implication here is really serious. When that academic credibility erodes, everyone, journalists, policymakers, the public, starts doubting the whole research pipeline.
Right. Trust is everything.
Precisely. Hence this urgent push for clear rules on ethical use of AI in academic writing.
Which leads us straight to the rule books. Okay, if I'm a student or researcher, how do I even know it's allowed? Is there any kind of global consensus emerging, or is it still just the Wild West out there?
Well, it's getting clearer, but it's definitely fragmented. The main takeaway, the consistent message, seems to be humans stay on the byline, bots stay in the acknowledgement.
Okay, disclose everything.
When in doubt, over-disclose. Transparency, as the source puts it, is the currency of trust, but the actual rules, they vary.
Like how?
Okay, take COPE, that's the Committee on Publication Ethics, very
Yeah.
influential for journals. They're clear. Substantial AI text or figures, that can lead to rejection.
Right.
But then a publisher like Sage might prohibit any generated passages in their author guidelines. It's stricter.
And so it depends on the journal or publisher.
Exactly. Or the APA, American Psychological Association, they prohibit using it for methods or content assistance, checked via peer review checklists. Then you've got things like the EU AI Act, still in draft, potentially prohibiting high-risk research uses with actual legal penalties.
Wow. Okay, so it's a real patchwork.
It is. Navigating it requires real granular awareness. It highlights the need for maybe a more harmonized global approach eventually. The field's still finding its feet, its moral compass on this.
Definitely sounds like universities need to pivot fast. That old formula,
Yeah.
essay plus plagiarism scan equals grade.
Doesn't work anymore.
Right. Now it's essay plus chatbot equals ambiguity. That just won't cut it for what the source calls assessment design for the LLM age.
So how are universities adapting assessment? Exactly. The source outlines 5 key design moves they're making. First, using process journals.
Okay, what's that?
Students log their daily decisions, their prompt iterations, reflections on how they use the AI. The journey earns marks, not just the final product.
Focus on process. Makes sense.
Second, capstone orals. Learners have to defend their choices live. You can't outsource spontaneity, right?
Good point. Can't fake it live.
Third, peer review swaps. Groups critique each other's drafts. That often reveals superficial bot content pretty quickly.
What else?
Fourth, data-driven tasks. You supply unique data sets each semester. That thwarts recycled answers from previous years or online sources.
Clever. Keeps it fresh.
And fifth, make-or-break mini-challenges. Things like timed coding puzzles or specific tasks at a lab bench. Things that isolate core mastery in the moment.
So the goal isn't to ban AI, but to encourage. What did you call it?
AI-augmented originality. Nudging learners to use AI to accelerate insight, but making sure that human reasoning, the critical thinking, remains clearly visible and accessible.
That's a smart approach. But it does raise another important question. What about equity, access, and power? These AI tools, especially the good ones, aren't free.
That's a huge concern, a really critical issue. The source points out that LLM subscriptions can cost more than a month's groceries in some low-income regions.
Wow.
So if the advanced features, the really powerful capabilities, are stuck behind paywalls, we risk seriously widening the digital divide, globally and even within countries.
Yeah, creating haves and have-nots with AI skills.
Exactly, which pushes crucial questions for education research. How do we fund campus-wide licenses fairly so every student gets access? Should public universities maybe prioritize open source models as a matter of principle?
Good question.
And what about accessibility? Which accommodations ensure, say, visually impaired students can actually harness these voice-first AI tools effectively?
Complex challenges.
They are. And answering them requires real partnership IT offices, disability units, student unions, all working together, not just top-down decisions.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly. For those listeners who want to maybe buckle up and understand the tech a bit more, can we peek under the hood? Why do these large language models actually work? How do they do what they do?
Okay, yeah, let's do a quick dive. Imagine you're building with Legos.
Okay, Legos, I'm with you.
LLMs first break down sentences into tiny, meaningful Lego bricks. We call them tokens. So a complex word like photosynthesis might become smaller bricks like photo and synthesis.
Right, breaking it down.
This lets the AI handle them and, crucially, understand common bits across many words. Then there's something called self-attention. It figures out how important each brick is to every other brick in the sentence.
Like how the Legos need to connect.
Exactly. Which ones must connect for a stable structure. This gives it context, the whole picture, not just words in isolation. That's key for making sense.
Yeah.
Then these connections get layered over and over in transformer stacks, building up more abstract features, grammar, meaning, even rhetorical stance.
Okay, building complexity.
And finally, there's reinforcement learning with human feedback, or RLHF. That's where humans basically train it to fine-tune the tone, avoid bad stuff, and align answers better with what the user actually wanted.
So humans are still teaching it.
In the fine-tuning stage, yes. And knowing this stuff helps academics use the tools better. Tuning prompts skillfully, that's called prompt engineering.
Right, getting better results by asking better questions.
Exactly. The source suggests prompt engineering should probably join citation styles as core scholarly knowledge for everyone now.
That Lego analogy really helps visualize it. Thanks. So if we understand how these machines sort of think, what happens when humans and machines really collaborate? Let's talk about co-creative scholarship, humans and machines in concert.
Yeah, it's a really compelling vision, and it's actually starting to happen.
How so?
Well, imagine a historian. They ask an LLM to narrate the fall of Rome, but as if it were tweets from different senators. The bot drafts these playful, maybe anachronistic texts. Then the human researcher steps in, cross-checks the dates, adjusts the tone, makes sure it's historically plausible before maybe publishing it as a cool pedagogical thread online.
So the AI generates raw material, the human refines and validates.
Precisely. It showcases AI as a collaborator, not a competitor. Or think about pilot projects exploring AI-aided peer review.
Peer review. How does that work?
Models can heat map a manuscript, highlighting potential logical gaps or areas needing clarification. It gives the human reviewer a first-pass analysis.
So it doesn't replace the reviewer.
No, the human still writes the final critique, makes the judgment call, but the bot quickly surfaces potential blind spots. Early trials show this can cut review time by like 20% without hurting quality.
Wow, 20%. That's a huge bottleneck in publishing. That could be a game changer.
Absolutely, speeding up that whole process.
Okay, so given all these possibilities, the challenges, the collaborations, let's look at some fresh data. Who uses what and why? What's jumping out about student adoption trends right now?
Well, the year-over-year trends, comparing 2024 to 2025 in the source material, are quite telling. They show really rapid shifts.
Like what?
Coursework AI use jumped significantly. Went from 28% of students using it to 47%. It's a 19% increase in 1 year.
Almost half of students using it for coursework.
Okay, exam AI use saw an even bigger leap, 15% up to 39%. That's a 24% jump.
Wow, that's a big jump for exams.
It is, and maybe most concerning from that integrity angle we discussed, full assignment outsourcing, getting the bot to write the whole thing, increased from 3% to 7%.
Doubled. Still small, but doubling in a year is notable.
Definitely notable. On the flip side, detector accuracy did improve from about 70% to 88%, so the tech to catch it is getting better too.
Okay, that's good news. What about faculty? How are they feeling?
It's really mixed. About 35% actively champion AI tools, integrate them openly, but a bigger chunk, 42%, remain cautious. They worry about shallow learning, critical thinking skills, and then you've got about 5% who are resistant to any adoption.
So a real spectrum of views.
Yeah, and that spread is critical for administrators. They need to tailor training and support. A one-size-fits-all approach just won't work for faculty.
What's fascinating here, too, is how global this shift is.
Yeah.
It's not just happening in, say, North America or Europe. Let's look at the regional uptake snapshot. How is AI adoption playing out across different continents?
The global spending figures for AI in academia in 2025 really paint that diverse picture. North America led, spending around $940 million,
Okay.
driven largely by ed tech venture capital, but as we discuss, facing big academic integrity fears as a hurdle.
Right.
Europe spent about $710 million. A key driver there was finding solutions for language diversity across the continent. But GDPR compliance, data privacy, that's a notable hurdle.
Makes sense.
Asia.
Asia invested $880 million. A major driver there is the need to scale teaching for very large classes, but rural connectivity can be a significant barrier.
Okay. Africa and Oceania.
Africa, around $180 million, driven a lot by mobile learning apps, which are huge there. The consistent hurdle is the cost of premium AI features, the tokens. The equity issue again.
Exactly. And Oceania, about $95 million, often driven by supporting remote teaching. A key hurdle there is getting faculty upskilled and comfortable with the tools.
So the takeaway is AI in academia is global, but it looks really different depending on where you are.
Absolutely. It's context specific. You can't just export a policy wholesale from Oxford and expect it to work perfectly in Nairobi. Local pilots, culturally relevant approaches, they matter hugely.
Looking ahead then, it feels like we're really just scratching the surface of understanding AI's full impact. What are the big research horizons for the next 5 years? What questions are scientists and educators asking now?
Yeah, several key areas are really emerging as top priorities. First, cognitive impact studies.
Meaning,
Asking vital questions like, do students who co-write with GPT actually retain concepts longer? Or is it shallower learning? How does it affect deep understanding?
crucial question.
Definitely. Then, algorithmic bias audits. How often do these LLMs, trained on vast internet data, reproduce things like colonial narratives in history essays? Or other subtle biases? We need to know that.
Yeah, really important.
Third, assessment validity models. Can we actually quantify how getting AI support changes how difficult an assessment item is? How does it impact the meaning of grades?
Right, does an A still mean the same thing?
Exactly. And finally, longitudinal faculty adaptation studies. Tracking those skeptical professors, will they eventually swing towards cautious optimism? Or will they dig in their heels? Understanding that trajectory is vital for successful integration strategies.
Lots to study. Is there funding for this?
Oh, yeah. Funding agencies have already earmarked millions for these kinds of projects. They recognize AI is going to be absolutely central to future knowledge economies.
Okay, so for university departments trying to navigate this maze right now, the source offers a practical checklist for departments. What are some key actionable steps they should be taking?
Yeah, it lays out a strategic task plan, which is really helpful, gives timelines, suggests who should be responsible, offers a real roadmap.
Like what?
Okay, for instance, draft an AI disclosure template. That should take about 1 month, probably handled by the Academic Integrity Office, gets transparency going immediately.
Good first step.
Train faculty in prompt literacy. That's maybe a 3-month task for the Center for Teaching, directly empowering educators to use the tools effectively and guide students.
Makes sense.
Maybe acquire an open source LLM cluster. That could take 6 months. IT services handles it. Provides equitable access to powerful tools without relying solely on commercial options.
Addressing that equity point.
Right. Convert top risk assessments, the ones most vulnerable to AI misuse. That might take a full academic year, led by curriculum committees. It's a bigger project, fundamentally reshaping evaluation. And finally, publish an annual AI usage report. Yearly task for the registrar, perhaps. Fosters transparency and accountability about how AI is actually being used on campus.
So having a plan helps avoid chaos.
Exactly. Sticking to a roadmap like that means the policy chaos can shrink pretty quickly. You get a more coherent, managed approach.
Okay, let's tackle some of those frequently asked operator questions that you, our listeners, might have right now. We hear these kinds of concerns a lot.
Absolutely. Let's hit a few common ones first. Does acknowledging I used a chatbot lower my scholarly credibility?
Good question. Does it?
The source says no, quite the opposite, actually. Transparency signals rigor. Readers appreciate knowing which parts came from silicon, which from human intellect. It builds trust.
Okay, so disclose it. Second question.
Can I quote AI text directly in my paper?
Can you?
Yes, but with proper citation. You need the tool name, the version you used, the date you prompted it, and the exact prompt itself. Treat it like citing software or a specific method.
Okay, meticulous citation is key. What else?
What about data privacy? If students feed sensitive interview data into a cloud-based AI?
Yeah, that's a big one.
Critical issue. For protected material, institutions really need to implement on-premise solutions or use EU-hosted instances or specific tools designed for private data. Don't just paste sensitive stuff into standard cloud models.
Got it. Privacy first, another common one.
Will AI destroy writing skills? People worry about this a lot.
Understandably, will it?
The source argues, only if teachers keep designing assessments that just value word count over actual thought. The focus has to shift fundamentally to argument quality, to unique voice, to reflective analysis.
So change the assessment, protect the skill.
Pretty much, and maybe one more. How often should institutions refresh their AI policy?
Good practical questions.
At least every 12 months, or even sooner if a major new model comes out that significantly shifts capabilities. This field moves incredibly fast, so policies have to be agile. You can't set it and forget it.
Constant vigilance. Okay, if we pull back and connect all this to the bigger picture,
Yeah.
what's the ultimate point? Beyond compliance, beyond the tech specs.
Yeah.
What's the humanistic angle here?
Yeah, this is important. Ultimately, university culture, what it stands for, rests on things like curiosity, critical debate, intellectual courage.
Right, absolutely.
And those traits, they survive any tool. AI in academia is like a mirror. It's asking us, are we going to double down on rote regurgitation, the easy stuff? Or are we going to use this moment to really celebrate deep reasoning, critical inquiry?
It forces a choice.
It does. And the answer shapes not just gradebooks, but the public's faith in scholarly expertise itself. Think back to the ancient Socratic method. Its power wasn't in perfect penmanship.
No, it was in the relentless questioning.
Exactly. Probing ideas. LLMs can now shoulder some of the trivial phrasing, the basic info recall. That potentially frees us up to press harder on the ideas, to ask those deeper, more challenging questions.
So in a way, AI could actually revive classical pedagogy.
That's the argument. It lets us focus on the why and the how of thinking, not just the what.
That's a powerful thought.
Yeah.
Okay, so wrapping up, maybe some final takeaways for our listeners.
Yeah.
Based on their role. So if you teach, maybe you redesign just one assignment this semester. Try focusing it around those reflective process journals we talked about. See how it goes.
Good practical step. If you research, maybe run a small pilot study. Measure AI literacy gains after a short workshop for students or colleagues. Get some data.
Right, if you're an administrator.
Yeah.
Maybe earmark some funds, look into options for equitable tool access across campus. Address that equity issue proactively.
Crucial. And if you study, treat prompt craftsmanship seriously. Cultivate it just as deliberately as you cultivate citation accuracy. It's a new core skill.
Great calls to action. Any final thought to leave us with?
Well, think about history. The blackboard didn't kill the lecture. The calculator didn't erase mental arithmetic.
True.
In that same spirit, large language models won't extinguish scholarly rigor, but they will test it. They'll expose the shortcuts, and they'll actually reward genuine originality more than ever, precisely because formulaic fluff is now essentially free for anyone to generate.
Interesting. So it raises the bar for originality.
I think so. When we manage to pair that relentless human inquiry with this incredibly generous technology, well, AI in academia stops looking like a threat. It starts looking like a telescope.
A telescope.
Revealing academic galaxies, new ways of knowing that we haven't even charted yet.